everybody, I'm Gracie.
And I'm Ann.
And we are Little Things, Big Difference. And this is the place where we talk about all of the little things that make a big difference in your life. So today we're going to be talking about one little word that makes a really big difference when you're talking about handling change. But first, what we wanted to talk about was how people do actually respond to change and how they handle change. So Ann, how do people handle change?
So I've noticed that there are four main ways that people handle change. The first is that when they see a change coming their way, some people choose to just freeze. That they think that as long as they continue to do things the way that they've always done them and they don't acknowledge the change, that somehow the change is just going to magically go away. And whether it's a mindset or whether it's a physical change that's happening in their environment, they just freeze and continue to do things the same way that they've always done them. Then some people actually reverse, that they are so threatened by the change that they actually begin doing the things that were working in the past, and they really push against the change. And as they push against the change, they move deeper and deeper into the past to try to protect themselves from whatever it is that's threatening them. And then you have kind of the complete opposite change response, and that is when people panic. So all of a sudden there's this fear of missing out, that there are these changes that are happening and you want to just take full advantage and you don't want to be left behind. So you start to panic and move in 15 different directions all at the same time, not even taking the time to think about what should be my best response. What should be my next step? And people start just going crazy in all different directions. But then there's a fourth response to change, which is really the ideal one that we all need to adopt. And that's when we move. Not moving in a panicky kind of state, but when we move with deliberate action and thoughtfully take the best next step. And we begin to kind of assess our environment, assess our surroundings, and say, okay, what's the next logical step for me to take? So for me, as I look at my personal response to change, there are different changes that will elicit different responses from me. And I know that one of the things that happens to me when I see a new change that's coming out, the first thing that I want to do is I want to figure out, okay, is this a fad? Is this just like some sort of passing phase? And if I think it is a fad, I just freeze. Like, I don't want to do anything because I'm like, I don't want to invest myself in this change, so then I just freeze. And I don't really begin to move with the change, and so I freeze. But then if I discover that it's not a fad, and I've just frozen and everybody else is ahead of me, then I start to panic. and I start to say, okay, well, I've got to do now 15 things to make up for the fact that I've just lost this time and have kind of frozen because of that change. So what's your typical response to change?
Yeah, I think the way that I respond to change has a lot to do with the level of trust that I have with the person that is leading that change. I think for me, if it's somebody that's leading change that I don't have a level of established trust with, I think I would be more of that freeze or that reverse.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be super invested in the change if I don't trust the person that's leading it. But on the other side of that, if it's somebody that I do trust that's leading that change, I think I'm more quickly to maybe freeze for a second and process it, but then I feel like I'm quick to move behind them if I trust the person that's leading the change. So I feel like I too can have kind of a different response to change depending on the situation. But so at the beginning we told them that we had this little word that makes a big difference whenever dealing with change. So Ann, what's that word?
That word is curiosity. Curiosity is the little word that makes a big difference, and let me tell you why. So curiosity is important because when a change happens, we kind of move into this fight or flight mentality where our way of thinking and operating, our mindset becomes threatened. We're kind of off our equilibrium a little bit and we don't really know where to go or what to do. And so our brain begins to process this change and we're determining, okay, am I going to fight against this? Am I going to flee? What am I going to do? How do I move? If I move, do I panic? What do I do? And as our brain processes that, if we don't take the time to stop and process and we just react, we often move into one of those top 3 areas of reaction to change. We either freeze, we reverse, or we panic. And the way that we move into this response where we actually move intentionally and deliberately is through stopping and getting curious about the change. Instead of seeing it as a threat to us, we get curious and we ask ourselves, okay, what is possible in this change? What is something that is a potential outcome or a potential benefit from this change? How might this change help me? How might this change help people around me? How might this change help the world? And if we begin to kind of open up our hands and open up our minds and get curious and let curiosity be our first response to change, then we can make sure that we move in a deliberate fashion in a way that allows us to respond to change instead of reacting against that change. So curiosity is the key to handling change.
That's so good. So if you have experienced curiosity and change, we would love to hear all about it in the comments. And how do you feel like you handle change? You know, we've told you guys, so we would love to hear from y'all how you feel like you handle change. And as always, be sure to like and subscribe to Little Things Big Difference here on YouTube, and visit us on Instagram and Facebook at The Chapel Online. And we look forward to hearing how this has made a big difference in your life.